Welcome back, our fellow patriots, to the Save Our Republic daily episode. Today I'm going to be talking about one way to reform education to help improve dramatically Americans' understanding of civics and history. Now, this is a K-12 educational proposal. And to understand it, I really need to explain to you how K-12 education approaches, in general, there's exceptions to all this, but in general, how we teach American history and civics. And I'm a former member of the State Board of Education. I've been involved in education in a variety of different schools, either literally working at schools, at the Cornerstone schools in Detroit, or consulting with schools through patriotweek and in other aspects of my life. So I have a pretty good grasp of this. And basically, again, there's exceptions. We teach American history chronologically. And you might say, Judge, that makes sense. Why wouldn't we teach American history chronologically? Well, it does make sense, except we teach it chronologically over the course of 13 years, K through 12. So what does that mean? That means initially, students learn about the pre-colonial era, the colonial era, the American Revolution, the Constitutional Convention, and a few years after that, in elementary school, typically 4th and 5th grade. Then in middle school, they learn about the antebellum era, the era before the Civil War, Reconstruction, and years after that. And then in high school, we pick up and we learn about the progressive era, the 18th and 19th century, late 18th centuries, the 1900s, and into the modern age. So if you think about that, that means that the last time our students really learned about the American Revolution, George Washington, James Madison, Thomas Paine, Patrick Henry, was in elementary school. Now, some kids do receive through AP US History or some other kind of review, small snippets of American history, but it is very superficial, not in depth. It's kind of a survey review kind of thing, as opposed to really getting an in-depth, comprehensive, thorough understanding of American history for the American Revolution, the Constitutional era, etc. It also means that when they're learning it, not only has it been something that happened years and years ago, right? By the time they graduate from high school at 17 or 18, they had it when they were in 5th grade, so that's more than a decade earlier, or pretty close to a decade earlier. But they also learned it at a 4th or 5th grade level. So the fascinating stories that are involved in the American Revolution, and one of our commentators, with actually more than one, in connection with my suggestion to people to give me input, said, hey, we need to teach American history in an engaging, interesting fashion with storytelling. And they're exactly right. In the story of the American Revolution and the Constitutional Convention, the Civil War, these are amazing stories that have been glossed over in very simple terms at very low levels, that so when by the time someone graduates from high school, they typically, if they've had it in high school, again, very superficial, not interesting, engaging, and also they have learned it in a fashion in connection with civics, usually in their senior year, maybe their junior year, but usually their senior year in high school. First off, 50% of the kids, in some areas, in urban areas where they're really struggling, they don't even make it through high school. They're dropping out, so they never get it. And then in other areas, they have senioritis, right? Even in the suburbs and the wealthy areas and the privileged kids, they're thinking about college, they're thinking about the military, their career. They're not really all that engaged. So the time to teach civics is not when you're a senior in school. Now, we're going a little bit longer than I expected, so I'm going to have to give you the solution tomorrow. But I wanted to address that this idea of teaching our history chronologically in schools makes no sense whatsoever. The idea of holding civics back until the very end of high school makes no sense whatsoever. And when our kids graduate, they do not have the educational background, the comprehension, the thoroughness, the detail that they need to be a functioning citizen in our society. We're asking young people to fight overseas for our republic, for our freedom, for our Constitution, for our liberty, and they don't even understand what they're fighting for. And when we allow them to vote, when they have that right to vote, they don't understand how the system works. Remember, 50% of the people don't know about the separation of powers, so they're voting for people that don't even know what they do. Tomorrow, I promise, we'll get to the solution, at least one. God bless you. God bless America. Don't forget about America's Survival Guide at americasurvivalguide.com, Patriot Week at patriotweek.org, as well as our podcast, Patriot Lessons, American History and Civics. Until tomorrow, God bless you, and God bless America.